Hello, and welcome to the Santee Church of Christ Bible Study Review, where we just go over the last class that we had Sunday morning at 9 o'clock at the Santee Church of Christ. Now, there's another class on Wednesday evenings at 7 o'clock. That class is currently in 2 Peter. This class is Deuteronomy, and we are currently in Deuteronomy chapter 26. Now, just as a very quick overview, again, the first 11 chapters concerns the history of where these Israelites are and their struggles before they go into this new land to take it over. It includes the Ten Commandments, and then in chapters 12 through 25, we see Moses dispense these laws concerning everything from national level things all the way down to personal responsibility items, different laws and things that they need to take care of. Chapter 26 breaks from that and kind of opens up this next part, that is the blessings and the curses that they are to acknowledge, that they are going to have with this covenant with God. Moses, or God, is making sure that the people understand what it means to have a covenant relationship with God. And we talk about this in class, that mostly what God is looking for is for them to be more like Him and to have a complete trust and faith in Him. And unfortunately, as we see later in the history, that becomes an issue for the people. And that's not to say anything about them other than those things can happen to any of us if we're not careful. Okay, so we started in already last week. We did the first 11 verses. We are in verse 12, and there's just some more of this declaration and proclamation for the blessings that they are to recognize. I actually put this chapter in with the blessings because it starts off with the first fruit blessing, and they make these declarations, and then it says in verse 12 that after their tithing, the third year tithing, and we talked about what that was earlier. There's a specific thing that is supposed to happen every 3 years for the tithing. You shall say before Jehovah your God, I consume the devoted things and have also given them to the Levite and the alien. I have not transgressed, I have not forgotten. So this is something they declare. This is something they are supposed to remember, that this is their agreement with God. I have not eaten it in my mourning. I have not put any of it away for uncleanness. In other words, he's being generous. This person is being generous. And then they invoke God and say, look down from your holy habitation from heaven and bless your people. So they're asking for a blessing from God. They are in the context of this sacrifice of tithing, but at the same time, God is telling them they are to be making these invocations for Him. Even now, I'm assuming, I think He's making this to tell them, look, you have blessings before the curses come. And then in verse 16, today Jehovah your God commands you to do these statutes and ordinances. Take heed to do them with all your heart and all your soul. And he says that several times throughout this book. Today you have declared Jehovah to be your God. That's in verse 17. And verse 18, and Jehovah has declared you today to be His people. So there's the agreement. You call on Jehovah to be your God, and He will make you His people, a special treasure, as He has spoken to you to keep all His commands. He will make you high above all the nations that He has made, in praise and His name and in glory, that you may be a holy people. So God is making them holy. It's not them making them holy. It's not of their own greatness. God is the one doing it for them. Then we got into a bunch of different curses when you get into chapter 27. This is the flip side of this agreement that they have with God, that they are to not wander away from their trust in him. I'm just going to go over them very briefly. He says, it shall be the day you cross into the Jordan, you raise up for yourself some great stones, plaster them, and write all the words of the law on them. I'm just paraphrasing. And then when you cross, you shall raise them up, and you shall build the altar there, and you shall not put any iron tool to it. You shall build the altar with uncut stones, and you shall offer burnt offerings on it to Jehovah your God. So here's this thankfulness that they are to have. And you shall offer peace offerings and eat there, and you shall rejoice before Jehovah your God. So this is a time for rejoicing for them. He's telling them, you need to be ready to rejoice for your relationship with me. And this is a reminder for them, and this is a monument for them when they go into this new land. 27 and 9. And Moses and the priests and the Levites spoke to Israel and said, you have become the people of Jehovah. So here God again is reiterating who they are in relation to him. You belong to him. You shall obey the voice of Jehovah. And in verse 11, then Moses charged the people the same day, saying, these shall stand on Mount Gerizim to bless the people when you have crossed over the Jordan. Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Joseph, and Benjamin. And these shall stand on Mount Ebal to curse. Reuben, Gad, Asher, Zebulun, Dan, and Naphtali. And the Levites shall answer and say to all men of Israel with a loud voice. So they're setting up this great sort of ceremony where they're going to be calling out the curses and blessings of either obeying God or walking away from the faith. Cursed is the man who makes a carved image or a molten image. Cursed is he who dishonors his father or mother or removes his neighbor's landmark, who makes the blind to wander out of the way, who perverts the judgment of the alien, the fatherless, and the widow. There's God's justice and compassion there. Cursed is he who perverts the judgment of the alien. Oh, I just said that. Cursed is he who lies with his father's wife, an animal, his sister, his mother-in-law. Cursed is those sexual sins. Cursed is he who strikes his neighbor secretly. Cursed is he who takes a bribe to strike a life. Cursed is he who does not rise to do all the words of this law. So here's God. He's starting with these curses, which basically, he's just reiterating to the people that they need to remember that obedience is paramount to these laws, and they're there for a good reason. And it's interesting, I think, that God never comes out and says, you shall be compassionate. He just shows them the way to do it. And of course, it's kind of a little bit different when the Christ comes. When Jesus comes, he expands this knowledge that the law is really not, it's not there to save you. It's there to guide you and to a better understanding of who God is. And when we see the New Testament come along, Paul speaks extensively about how the law basically convicts the person who is under it. And it's faith that draws us to God, and that's how God can find us righteous. So those are the things that we covered, and we're kind of going through these fairly quickly because there's so many of them. And we kind of try to get the overall view of what the message God is trying to get across. And basically in this point, where we have the curses of losing your faith with God, we all agree that at least within the Christian paradigm, having that faith in God is a great value and a great treasure in the Christian life. And the Christ has really made it, I don't want to say easy, because Christianity isn't always easy. Sometimes, the Christian can be persecuted. but certainly it gives us something solid for us to trust in. God is a trustworthy God. And this is what we are finding in this book to his people. And that message is the foreshadowing of what we have today. Those are just a couple of the things that we talked about. If you're interested, again, we have this class on Sunday mornings at 9 o'clock, and we have class at 7 o'clock on Wednesday nights. And at the time of this recording, on Wednesday nights, we're studying 2 Peter. Thank you for listening. Hope to see you there, and may God bless you.